Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Beyond the Buzzer. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game, bringing it to you live with my right-hand man tonight, Bobby Blackjack, producer extraordinaire. Danny Thompson, after being on TV in the local Charlotte area, is entirely too famous to waste his time with us. No, I'm kidding. He's actually covering the WNBA. So just had to give him shouts, taking care of business, doing all that, and covering the WNBA draft, being the big man about town that he is in all things basketball. But hey, that's all right that you got me. We got an awful lot to talk about. Awesome show. Don't forget about our good friends at Valor. I don't have to do the flip to the side because I'm on the left. I could just point out if you're looking to get a demo cut, do all that, make yourself famous. Even if you happen to have a mix that was inspired by a busted fire alarm, smoke detector, they'll make it happen for you. Rip to the beep, right, Bobby? So, Bobby, what's going on, man?
Not much. By the way, I understand they're making another reboot. They're making another movie for Entourage, and based on Denny's appearance on local TV, he got signed to do a cameo. That's why he could have.
That's right. That's right. He's gonna swoop in with the private plane and
hold him up, for the football side of things.
There you go. Hey, if he smacks Turtle in the face, that's fine. Like that, the Turtle is literally the most pointless character in any show I've ever seen.
Well, come on,
nothing to the show.
Apropos is the guy who's the brokest out of all of them becomes very rich at the end.
Yeah, no. In the show, I'm not saying he's not enterprising, but like, listen, I mean, just Turtle for me. They did that because he did so little everywhere else. Like his main plot line was dating the lady that played Soprano's daughter in The Sopranos.
Yeah.
That's what else you got? I mean, come on. And Johnny Drama for the win, ladies and gentlemen. Viking Quest and all that. Anyways.
Now, Kyle, real quick, I know
Yes, sir.
Did you watch it yet?
Yeah, I was just about to go to that too. I did get to Kong versus Godzilla, and you and I, for both all the weeks leading up to and all that, and I apologize if we're bringing this up kind of late, but between me having family disasters the same night that Danny Thompson took the week off from basically falling flat on his face after 96 hours of sports coverage. We weren't around last week, but I have since, I had even leading up to that show was prepared to talk about it. But Bobby Blackjack and I were certain that the nuclear power plant with scales was going to whip the bejesus out of King Kong. Now, the way it worked out, they gave Kong a victory, but you notice for one of the rounds of the battle, I should say, Bobby, but you notice in order for him to win, he had to have some sort of a performance enhancer, right? Hopefully there's no spoiler alert, but and even after that, Godzilla went to work on Kong later and ended up turning the tides anyway. And it is only by the grace of Godzilla himself that Kong remained alive. And of course, I don't know if this counts as a spoiler, but if you're looking to avoid spoilers, plug your ears for about 15 seconds. I loved the team up on Mechagodzilla. All that was cool. It's very easy to get Mechagodzilla or something like that wrong, Bobby Blackjack, and I felt like they did a good job. And frankly, they addressed the complete and total mismatch perfectly. Listen, Kong's a sympathetic character. He's the one that got the side quest to get the weapon. That's the way it should be. Godzilla's just kind of an angry lizard. He doesn't even do sign. What the hell? I mean,
Yeah, I thought it was, if you're a fan of either, for lack of a better word, Titan, you had to come across pretty happy. Our side, we get the little knockout in the beginning, right? Knocked out cold. But real quick, before we go on to our schedule, now we had to back and forth briefly. Where do you see this storyline going? What have you heard? Obviously, there's a whole litany of Titans out there that from Godzilla, King of Monsters, right? The last one before this,
right.
6, 7 of them out there somewhere.
They're
going to be teammates now, you guess.
I mean, despite my work on Hilarity by Default, I am not necessarily an expert on kaiju movies. But what I can tell you is this, Bobby Blackjack: there's at least one essential character that's got to make the list for the Zilla to go on. Godzilla's got to face Mothra at some point. Mothra's got to be a thing. I don't think.
Hold on. Mothra was a sympathetic, neutral Switzerland figure in that movie, kind of.
Perhaps, but I feel like the two of them have to do battle at some point. That'll be a thing. But I think the next movie you're gonna get another versus, but it's gonna be a situation like they can't be suddenly. It can't be the kaiju version of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right? Like that can't be a thing that happens. No one cares about that. And then being friends that much, they're trying to get the Fatten to make that an actual interesting movie, right? So at that juncture, I kind of feel like what you're going to do somewhere is there'll be an interweaving of, are they friends or aren't they throughout? And then, they'll introduce various villains. And to be honest, like I said, there's some classics that they can bring in and reimagine so that they don't, have that whole Mighty Morphin Power Ranger look, But I mean, you're the kaiju guy. Who's the one you want to see done next?
I'm not really. I mean, I just grew up watching them. I a little bit of them. Like I mentioned to you, like when are we gonna when are they gonna finally like mend fences, and when are we gonna see Gamera again, like in a feature? Because I love Gamera growing up.
Hey, maybe that's the move. Maybe that's the next thing they're doing. Maybe they recapture that. But I'll tell you what, Bobby Blackjack, with as good as that did, I would find that hard to believe that HBO Max specifically, wouldn't throw money at that to make that happen. I mean, to hear that it outperformed viewership within HBO Max to the Snyder Cut, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And I get it. Oh, but Kyle, Kong versus Godzilla was a brand new movie. The Snyder Cut was a reimagining of another thing. Yeah, but everybody knows Superman. Everybody knows Batman. I should say Batman first, because like what puts butts in seats for movie stuff is certainly Batman. And then Gal Gadot's nailing it as Wonder Woman. And listen, Jason Momoa as Aquaman, listen, you found a way to make that character intriguing, and his individual movie was worthwhile. So I can see totally why the Snyder Cut was very interesting to do. Spoiler, not a spoiler, but in case anyone's wondering, no, it's not any better. I said spoilers. Pay attention, Renee. Thank you. See you tomorrow, by the way. The whole thing is just a matter of it didn't need to be 4 hours, and I didn't get anything that made it a good movie suddenly. But, see what you will. There are some things that are better about it than the Justice League, and some things that are inferior. Hashtag I said it. But enough about this. So if you're into monster movies, Titan movies, as Bobby calls them, go ahead and take a shot with Kong versus Godzilla. Good time all the way around. But speaking of big men, Bobby Blackjack, shocking story and development out of the NBA. Your Brooklyn Nets impacted by breaking news today. LaMarcus Aldridge retiring from the NBA due to health concerns with an irregular heartbeat. First of all, you always hate to see a career cut shorter than it could be. The example that hurt my feelings the most was Priest Holmes with his neck injury, former linebacker for the Denver Broncos, also Al Wilson, I believe was his name. This is the 90s, folks. So, chill. It's okay. But Aldridge latest on the list, Bobby, as our local Brooklyn Nets homer, this has got to be a pretty significant impact on your squad there, especially with news now coming out just tonight that Anthony Davis for the Los Angeles Lakers is now been cleared for full on-court work. So take us in a little bit what you think the impact is on your squad, bud.
The only concern I have is that are there any quality big men left out there?
Right.
I believe the answer to that would be DeMarcus Cousins is also on a 10-day contract somewhere. I believe Clippers, actually, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have to imagine if they really wanted to go that route and find a serviceable big man to. And don't forget, if you haven't noticed this, I know if you watch, I know you're not too big of an NBA guy per se, than DT. But
sure.
But the whole time LaMarcus Aldridge was here playing those 5-6 games and playing very well, by the way.
Right.
DeAndre Jordan did not play at all.
Right.
So kind of like, all right, ebb and flows. he came up and he's still a quality big man, and he's there. I like the signing of Alize Johnson from 2 10-day contracts to now a 2 or 3 year deal for minimal money. I think he brings a lot of energy, and I've been saying this for a while now. Don't sleep on Nick Claxton on defense, because with him playing, he can cover almost any position on the court at 6'11", 7 foot, even a point guard. So now we also lost a backup point guard and Chris Chioza as well. So I think there are a lot more guards out there to plug in for the rest of the season and the playoff run than there are bigs. So we'll see what happens.
Well, right, and I'll leave it to this. Like, while I'm not as concerned about a backup point guard, to your point, as I am with Aldridge providing a good portion of the size on that roster. But at the end of the day, you and I both know, and it's a harsh truth for you, my friend. It's just the facts of the case. But what I know is the Nets need to be able to defend a big 3. And this is true of any team that makes an NBA playoff run, right? I mean, unless their plan is to win 160 to 140, which, listen, I like Harden and Kyrie and company and all that. That's super great. But that does not often lead to a championship run. And, I mean, for my money, this takes Aldridge out of the conversation for them being competitive against a fully healthy Laker team in the finals. And moreover, I think this also impacts their ability to be the lock that they were, rather, the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, they'll still get there.
Yeah, it'll be a little harder. It'll be a little tougher. I agree.
Yeah, I can't guarantee that they will represent the Eastern Conference as I did when they first made that acquisition, right?
You know what? So, again, look what happened last night. Minus 7 players. Oh, by the way, speaking of guards, guard play, there's still a pretty low but decent chance that Dinwiddie comes back.
Okay, but at the end of the day, what does that do for defense?
I think the defense is going to be fine. I think it's very underrated. I mean, I'm looking at it from a different brand of glasses than the rest of the NBA out there, being a Brooklyn Nets fan. But I see defense as being a problem, because I mean, you want to talk about our defense? Well, who's going to stop the big 3?
Yeah, that's a fair question. You're trying to do it by an embarrassment of riches, which is fine. But I'll put it this way. The thing to do is to force Kyrie early to have the ball and then shift late to Harden. Because then, or I should say, let Harden get his late. Maybe, I don't know. It's a tough. So I said that, and somebody's going to lose their mind. What are you talking about? Like, I believe that Kyrie is capable of making the clutch shot. And that's something you got to account for, like, because he's done it in the past.
I'll tell you, take away the. Again, I don't want to. He's one of my guys. He's actually from the next town over from Seton Hall, which is he's an Orange guy, or Seton Hall's in South Orange. But you know what? Watching him play, he is phenomenal. I mean, he's like fluid out there. He's almost like artwork. Now, one thing I'm curious to know, which is, I don't know if it's hit you down there in Florida or not, Kyle, is that there's some speculation that Mr. Irving has switched to Islam and he's fasting for Ramadan right now. That's kind of why he's a little up and down with playing, because he's not used to the rigors of a fast like their people do.
Well, no, and I mean that's Ramadan is a temporary thing, but I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know the stretch of schedule, but at the end of the day, Harden and Durant could probably pull the weight in the meantime. After all, they do still play in the East. That is still a thing. So,
and there's one X factor that nobody talks about when it comes to the Brooklyn Nets and what they do, and that's Joe Harris on the outside.
Right. Well, at the end of the day, those teams that oft win, and we saw it throughout the bubble playoff series last year, is if you get that guy that's not one of your big 3, that's not one of your stars, lighting up, hitting threes. I mean, hell, Danny Green has made a career of that for the past however many seasons, ever since, he was with Pop in San Antonio battling against LeBron in the Heat, right? So, I mean, that guy that can do that is a big deal in any playoff scenario, and I'll leave that at that. So, anyways, shouts and prayers to continued health, and it's tough when you got to make a health-based decision to end your career, but thoughts and prayers nonetheless for LaMarcus Aldridge in that situation. Speaking of retirement, another retirement that took place during our or I should say between one of our shows, switching over to the NFL, has sparked a very interesting conversation. Of course, for those that have not heard the news yet, Julian Edelman of the New England Patriots, a vaunted receiver for the franchise, has retired. And now there's a conversation as to whether or not he should be a Hall of Famer. So now the argument for is, in the postseason, he has so much performance and he's done so great and blah. Okay, and granted, he has a lot of postseason appearances, and I do like the phrase referring to the playoff games as the ones that matter a little bit more because they do. But at the end of the day, there also needs to be some aspect and understanding of the fact that there is also a regular season, right? So here's the point I hear made. This is the point that I find weird. Somebody out there in the media, I think this is Colin Cowherd, made mention of the fact that Calvin Johnson is a Hall of Famer, but if he were asked to trade careers with Julian Edelman, that he would in the heartbeat due to the postseason success. And that's great. It's absolutely true. I don't know what the hell that does to make Julian Edelman a Hall of Famer. Like Bobby Blackjack, Julian Edelman could not start ahead of Wes Welker for his first, 3 or 4 seasons there? And you're going to try to tell me he deserves a spot ahead of Reggie Wayne, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce? I could go on for guys that belong ahead of him. Listen, this isn't me saying Julian Edelman is a bad receiver. I'm not even going to go so far on this show to say that he's not a Hall of Fame caliber receiver, right? When you say at this point, right when they freshly retired, that, he's a Hall of Famer, you're kind of implying he's a first ballot guy. And no, Julian Edelman is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, period, end of story, right?
Vinny, in the previous show, I co-hosted, filling in for Buffalo Will right before us on Viva Los Bills. He mentioned a point which I didn't realize, and I'm usually a good fact checker, but he had mentioned that Edelman hasn't even made a Pro Bowl once in his career.
Yeah, but is
that factoring anywhere? I mean,
ish, yeah. I mean, because if his performance was that good, he would have made the Pro Bowl. But see, that's the part, and I'm not knocking the point. For me, a guy who's a data guy first and foremost, and not just a stat guy, there's a difference. There is long-term analysis. You have to ask the alpha, why do the stats happen that way? And really, him not making a Pro Bowl is a symptom of what I covered earlier, right? Most of his numbers are in post-game places, okay? And frankly, I feel it's a moral obligation for me to avoid giving Julian Edelman props for stuff that's not really skill-based. In other words, that catch where he clinged it onto his foot, that was the luckiest damn thing in the world. And Danny Thompson's friggin' Atlanta Falcons gave up a 28-3 lead in part because of that and many other things. Shouts to you, Danny Thompson. I blame you for making Julian Edelman a topic of him going into the Hall of Fame. But that joke aside, again, the Pro Bowl in this instance is only evidence that he hasn't performed big in the regular season, right, Bobby? Like, and I know the point is made that the Patriots would often regularly get in with 12 wins and that they were running the ball a lot of time. Y'all fools be forgetting that Tom Brady is the king of the three-point victory. The games aren't always over at the end, ladies and gentlemen, unless, of course, they're playing somebody in the rest of their sorry butt division, which, by the way, has improved the butt ton somehow the very same time that Tom Brady's left. And no, it's not just because the Patriots lost Tom Brady. Like literally everybody in the division not named the New York Jets got better, right? So, and
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You're down there in Florida, right close to the Tampa situation right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you foresee any situation, any situation, I'd say not many times in a row, do you foresee a situation where, say, a Scotty Miller gets hurt in the preseason and all of a sudden Mr. Edelman is feeling better? Does he do a Gronk and come back for that one more season, for one more run with Brady?
No. When Edelman, because I know that's been talked about and stuff, and it's a cute sentiment, and that's all adorable and everything, and I know that he and Brady are super bros and everything's cool, and I'm sure he would like to. But when he has been quoted saying something along the lines of referring to himself as the wheels having fallen off, that is not the talk of a man who is fitting to come back. That's not a thing, you know. And I'll put it this way. If you don't like the point that he couldn't beat out Wes Welker, which for my money, I'm sorry, Wes Welker is more of a Hall of Fame caliber player because all the multiple things that he did, that Edelman did, return kicks, return punts, be a solid receiver. Guess what? Wes Welker was doing that in Miami, and his quarterback wasn't Tom Brady. Now, I'm not trying to hold it against Edelman that he had Tom Brady the whole time. No, that's a ridiculous argument. But I do believe that with the secret weapon Welker, as I called him, in Miami when nobody knew what he was, and I was just a podcaster on the Student of the Game podcast with Weasel Weeze and the local hero Chris Rankin, right? He would light up the damn stat sheet. Like if Dolphins fans are listening to me, they're going to get this analogy. He was basically like Ronnie Brown without the Wildcat, putting up stats in all sorts of categories, okay? That's all there is to it. He was called the secret weapon because no one else was talking about him, we felt like, except on that podcast. Then we dropped the secret off secret weapon Welker because when he became a Patriot, that's when he got famous, Bobby Blackjack. So he was just Wes the Weapon Welker. And Wes the Weapon Welker regularly beat out Julian Edelman on that roster. You couldn't be the starter throughout your career. And I'll put it to you this way, Bobby Blackjack. If I say to you, name me the top 15, 20 receivers in the past 10 years, you are not, unless you're outside the general Massachusetts area or inside the general Massachusetts area, you are not naming Julian Edelman top 20. Hold
on. Unless you got to be within the area where your chowder is creamy white and not red.
Well stated, Bobby Blackjack, which, I mean, hey, listen, for me, I'm fat. I like both styles of cream chowder. It's sometimes you feel like it, but that's the, I mean, it's, as geographic markers go, you are on point with that. And I definitely dig that point of view. So yeah, no, I mean, for me, if I'm not going to be like some of these guys who are just genuinely bitter about it. If Julian Edelman makes the Hall of Fame, I'm not mad about it. But for those of you who are pro getting into the Hall of Fame, I'm going to tell you right now, he better wait at least as long as John Lynch had to wait to get into the Hall of Fame. Okay. And I would be surprised if Wes Welker got in before his hair was fully gray. He's going to be one of these guys that's going to be waiting for a while. And it's not his fault per se. He's a guy that I hate to use the term benefited from a system, but damn it, he did. I'm sorry, but that doesn't necessarily make him a bad player. He's a great grit and determination story, but so is Danny Whitehead. I mean, come on. But if he got in the Hall of Fame, I'm not mad, but it's not gonna happen for a long time. And like how Ray Guy, the epic Raiders punter, got in late. I think that's the kind of addition that I was about to call him Wes Welker, Julian Edelman will have when he gets in the Hall. And of course, that's pending all sorts of stuff. Like people are worrying too much about the stats and his number. I mean, it doesn't look good that a running back in Marshall Faulk has as many or more receiving yards than him. Edelman, I mean. So that's not a great piece for your case. especially if you're just purely stat-based. Listen, I love the conversation that he did it in the clutch moments. It's that sort of conversation that has Eli Manning on track to get in the Hall of Fame, right? But Wes Welker, man, you're going to have to reconcile an awful damn lot if he's in before just the handful of guys I mentioned on the list. Bobby.
Two things. I read somewhere, I didn't read the full article, but I read somewhere up here where it stated, they were trying to state the fact that Edelman's Hall of Fame candidacy rests on what happens with Eli Manning making it. That's
a good point. I think I kind of alluded to that myself. I hadn't read that article, but obviously I agree with that, right? It's a matter of, because here's the thing, Bobby Blackjack, what you need to have, I would say, and I have no factual basis here. This is just kind of me formulating a theory. I'm the student of the game. This is what I do. Okay. You need 2 of 3 things to get into the Hall, generally speaking, right? You need stats. If you have incredible stats, there's a reason why Jerry Rice was unequivocally going to get it. Okay. Every known receiving record at the time, and some of them have been broken, but not a lot of them, right? Jerry Rice was also in a lot of postseason games, right? With 2 different all-time quarterbacks. Arguably, there are some people that try to tell me that Montana wouldn't be that good without Jerry Rice, and then I remind them the catch would involve Dwight Clark before Jerry Rice was even in the damn league. Bing! Take that, bitches. Anyways, it could be argued, too, that he also enhanced Steve Young as a player. And listen, that team getting to the National Conference Championship game, the NFC Championship game, where they would be eventually beaten by Atlanta, who would be eventually crushed by the Broncos. But to even appear in that game with the catch, too, with Terrell Owens and having that receiver core with J.J. Stokes and that group, that is an accomplishment for Steve Young in my mind. Say all that to say, the third thing they have to have is a story, right? You can have stats and you can have rings, but if you're not an amazing story, no one cares, right? Mm-hmm. There's a player out there who has 5 Super Bowl rings, took the longest time to get in the Hall of Fame, right? Charles Haley, right? Mm. Didn't have the story, right? The story was he had 5 rings, and right? It's the Robert Ory conversation. Big Shot Bob has a great story. Hell, he has great shots in the postseason even, but he did not have the stats to substantiate being in the Hall of Fame, right? But Eli Manning has postseason performance, wins, Super Bowl rings, right? And a story. Now, the other way that Eli's story is enhanced, or Julian Edelman's is not, is Julian Edelman, in the NFL at least, does not play quarterback. And that's what's going to be problematic. Now, to this point, to enhance this point, if Eli gets in, that could be the start of the slippery story. Well, if Eli got in, postseason and Super Bowl rings, and Julian Edelman has all these rings, and he used to be a quarterback and he transitioned receiver, oh my God, it's so amazing. I can see it. But I'll put it this way. Ain't no way he's going to get in before Eli does, if Eli is to get in. So
my second point was if there's one Hall of Fame Edelman would be a part of, that would be the Fantasy Football Hall of Fame. Because every time we went against this guy, he had either 100 yards receiving or he had like 15 catches. So he'd kill you every time.
But in a PPR, he's brutal.
Brutal, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No. You're 100% right on that, Bobby Blackjack, no question. Now, yards, not so much, because,
maybe 100 here and there, but usually 70, 80, maybe 90. But 15 catches, though,
Yeah, he's the guy you would get once, once the Calvin Johnsons and the DeAndre Hopkins and such were off, the Larry Fitzgeralds were off the board, all playing for less good teams, except for the 1 year with Larry Fitzgerald, And by the way, as a side note, people trying to talk about that Julian Edelman has the best catch in Super Bowl history, the most important catch in Super Bowl history. Can we stop with that for 30 seconds? There's one Super Bowl that had 2 catches, more important than any of that, okay? The Cardinals-Steelers Super Bowl, where Larry Fitzgerald makes the catch he does and takes it the distance that he does, that could have been the catch of that damn game if it wasn't for Santonio Holmes at the end of that very same game. And oh, by the way, and I could argue a linebacker makes an even more important catch when James Harrison goes the distance at the end of the first half. So get out my face with that. Listen, Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman is I was about ready to call him Wes Welker again. I got to stop that. He's got to, if there's a word, and I don't want to just say above average because that doesn't do it. He's better than good, but to call him great is tough, right? Now, if you want to come out with one of these, oh, he's the best slot receiver. Okay, great. And listen, for those that have seen Raging Bull, Kevin Costner had the most home runs in minor league history. That's great, but and so anyways, like I said, if he gets in, I'm not mad, but if you're telling me only yes or no, I would lean no. But again, if he gets in as like Ray Guy did, the punter for the Raiders that palmed the shit out of the ball and did all that, I would not be mad. If Julian Edelman, despite the fact that he would whine for a flag after basically every incompletion, I would have no beef if he did eventually get in the Hall, though.
Yeah, it'll be interesting case study next couple of 5 years from now, right? Next couple of years, see what happens. But I think, you know what? I think, no, not really. I think part of these Hall of Fame, whether especially in certain sports, where you obviously got to wait a certain amount of time to get in, right? Is who is going in with you? Who is in that first year with you? So we'll have to see what happens. He might be a prominent guy in that list. Who knows?
Well, for example, he might be in a position where he has to battle Larry Fitzgerald, or
true, yeah, because he's he retired, right? Finally, or no?
I honestly don't remember.
He's not signed yet, I don't think.
Right, exactly. So that's still a possibility, is why I put it on the board. And granted, there aren't, off the top of my head, there's not other big receivers that are retiring the same year here. And the fact that Brady won the Super Bowl saved him one, because it would have been interesting if Brady was the reason he didn't get in first ballot, among, other things. As big retirements go this particular season, though, not really a huge battleground for 5 years from now, which means his main problem is going to be his fellow receiver brethren. Now, we start seeing Isaac Holtz and Isaac Holtz. I put them together into one receiver. Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt. If they get in if Reggie Wayne gets in, if a number of these receivers that have been clamoring to get in between then and now, it's a conversation we can have. But let's just say there's a number of obstacles before that can happen too. So
okay, I see that.
Yeah,
I like up in the NFL today. They're Mr. Student of the game.
Well, hey, there you go. I mean, beyond that, if you're that excited about Jadeveon Clowney getting signed by the Browns, good for you. I'm not. If you're that excited by Aldon Smith ending up in Seattle, good for you. I'm not. That gray mule ain't what she used to be. Anyways.
Oh, now, real quick, how did he? I remember he had a great start to the season for the Cowboys, right? For the first 3 games, he was
sure.
How did he end up? Or he got hurt again?
Right, he was battling through it too. He's of a particular age and size where injury is a factor, And my question, you ask about where he went, I'm still wondering what the hell happened to DeMarcus Lawrence, but that's a whole other question. So I don't know. Anyways, right. So keeping it with football for the moment. Now, I know people are going to give me a hard time bringing this up for being a, quote, UCF homer, but listen, I cover the team. It's a thing that I do. However, they just happen to be something that became a national headline, a relatively harmless thing, or so I would have thought. I'll give their new head coach, former Auburn head coach Gus Malzahn, some credit. He performed nicely at the press conference to see to it that this got to be a national headline. But at UCF's spring game, they came out with their Twitter handles on the back of their jerseys instead of their names. Now, for those wondering, Why is that a big deal? I think that represents the first major step of anybody in college football.
Monetizing?
Yeah, and branding is more specifically, right? Yeah, no, you nailed it, Bobby. And Florida is one of the states where that's completely supported legally, right? So UCF, whether people like it or not, UCF is foremost in things that you wouldn't think of. Their viewership rivals a lot of the elite Power 5 programs. Their social media presence is, I can make a strong argument for in the top 10. And now you have this whole branding piece. Now you're probably wondering, Bobby, what does this matter football-wise? Can you say recruiting tool? Okay, right? And I mentioned the Gus Malzahn press conference, right? Excuse me. Average age of the fan base for UCF is of their 700,000 or so alumni is 36. Okay. Twitter speaks to that demographic. And more importantly, it speaks to the demographic of recruits. You're keeping fans engaged, you're keeping recruits engaged, and giving them an opportunity to pick over some stuffed shirt, die in the wool, we've been doing it for hundreds of years method. Gus Malzahn said, Facebook, average age is, the people in their 60s use Facebook. My mom's on Facebook. She just, I mean, listen, that was a great shot, but why you got to bring your mama into it, Gus Malzahn? Damn. But I think the branding point here is something that can reverberate across the nation. And of course, as per usual, all the SEC outlets find themselves talking trash on SEC on UCF rather. And for all the trash the SEC wants to talk on UCF, you would be surprised how much UCF hate flows through those pages to get clicks, Bobby Blackjack. But I mean, what do you think of it branding wise? The kids with the Twitter handles on the back of their jersey.
Well, I think it's almost undeniable part of what's going to happen in the future anyway. In sports, right? And there's somebody who wants to add a little nostalgia to the present, and I guess they have to use their names, right? There's no. Well, I know that could be. They can use almost anything. Like I just imagine somebody putting hashtag he hate me, right?
Right.
Add a little nostalgia to, because if that's not taken yet, that would be like the thing I would take if I was because you add a little bit of both there. But no, it's definitely the future. It's definitely something's going to happen. Now, a little sidebar here to that just hit my mind. Well, what happens to the New York Yankees, who are stout and known for not putting the last names in the back of their jerseys?
Well, that's a whole other question, right? I mean, branding isn't an issue for professional athletes.
Oh,
right?
You're right.
But to your point, there are some programs out there that don't have names on the back. I don't know if Penn State has changed up yet, but at one point they were one of the programs that didn't. And I'll put it this way: there's two things that I come away with. You nailed one of them, and I'm going to call it the Thanos defense. I am inevitable, right? This branding stuff is inevitable. And second, it's the spring game. Let me tell you why I don't think it's going to happen in the regular season, is because, the players themselves aren't necessarily branding. Check that. They're branding, air quotes, for scouts, okay? If I'm trying to remember a Twitter handle off the top of my head that doesn't match a UCF player's name, but I can't at the moment. The punchline is let's go with Otis Anderson. He's graduated, but he's somebody whose handle doesn't match his name. Running back / wide receiver, offensive specialist Otis Anderson, who I wrote up as part of the Pro Day for my UCF Pro Day article a couple weeks ago on the 3pointconversion.com, number 3. Instead of the words 3. Anyways, wrote that up with him there at the Pro Day. Let's say he was still playing. His Twitter handle is thejuice_6. Okay. And he stopped wearing number 6 some time ago. So there's confusion number 1. 2, the Juice has nothing to do with the name Otis Anderson. Okay.
Yeah.
Right? How do you get that together? So, excuse me, during the season when the games count, they're more branding for the scouts, right? Because branding don't mean ish if you can't get out and into the NFL ranks, right? That means nothing. However, in a game like the spring game, where it doesn't count anyway, and the fans are the only people that really care about it, generally speaking. There are a few scouts, president, all that kind of crap, sure. But this gives an opportunity for the players to introduce themselves to the fans to start the season. Hell, as a member of the media, typically speaking, I'm not truly introduced, especially with COVID protocols in place. I'm not typically introduced to the players and starting to really memorize their name until I see them on a depth chart. Mm-hmm. Ain't no way they had that until about now anyways. So now the players are not only getting acquainted with them on the field, but now they can whip out their phone at the stadium and be like, oh, that guy made an awesome catch. I'm going to follow him. I'm going to tweet at him. That was a great interception. Whatever, that was dope. Now, granted, in doing this, the big downside, Bobby Blatchak, is obviously it's still Twitter. Toxicity runs rampant.
Well, here's $1 million. You're a tech guy. I would call this $1 billion idea, not even $1 million idea. And who knows? Probably already out there.
Okay.
If this is the future of sports and whatnot, or hey, you can use this in everyday life. You can be watching a TV show and do the same thing. So then, all right, this guy has a hashtag in the back of his jersey, right? Or girl for women's sports.
Yeah, WNBA. Somebody gets drafted, they'll drop their Twitter handle, whatever.
How about this for technology? You're on your laptop or you're on your smartphone, your whatever device, your laptop, your Apple, whatever. You're watching this game, and you're able to isolate this person on the field and click on their hashtag. And then,
okay, so you're talking about like with the if you're close enough to get
superficially on the technology would be that somehow, whether it's on the jersey or on the broadcasting program they're using, they're able to put hyperlinks on the hashtag on the jerseys. So when you're home watching the game, boom, instant bio, instant stats, instant whatever you want of that player.
Yeah, so you're saying it would be something like if I take my phone, like I could do with my Apple phone now. If I do it on a barcode or whatever, yeah, I can scan something.
Very similar.
$1
million. Shh. Hold on. I mean, stop recording this. No.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're like the guy that found the guy named Reese's that found the dude that spilled his chocolate and his peanut butter and shot him for the recipe. No, listen, man, there's plenty of there. I don't know, man. That's a hell of a concept. I'll leave it at that. My gosh, we're already 43 minutes in, and we haven't gotten to what I think is the premier topic of conversation tonight yet. We won't even have to do Mount Rushmore at this rate, but we'll see what happens. So Bobby Blackjack, huge news in the college football landscape with the transfer portal. And this isn't just for football, by the way, but that dead zone space where a player who transfers has to sit for a year has now been entirely eliminated from sport. So
is it eliminated? Is it eliminated or is it just one time?
Yeah, for at least one time, right? For the first time, I should say. I don't know if it's outright eliminated. I think they're still kind of working through that part.
Yeah, I think it's one time
at least one time you can transfer without having to sit. Which, to be honest, I am of two minds on this. And so the initial knee-jerk reaction, Bobby, is that they're going to freak out that the transfer portal will get flooded, right? Is that really that bad a thing?
College basketball right now, I read this earlier this week, has 1,400 Division I players, men's players. I think another 1,000 on the women's side currently in the transfer portal for D1 college basketball. That is insane.
I mean, true.
Now, mind you, there's not mistaken. There's 300 or so Division I men's basketball programs out there. You got to figure 10 or no, 12 to 15, 12 to 14. I'm not sure what the scholarship limit is per team, but you got to figure, all right, let's say it's even 12. That's a pretty big number of players in total. But 1,400 is insane because, I mean, these coaches now, whether it be college football or college basketball, would have to totally, if not totally change their recruiting methods, they would have to almost leave a door open, because if you're going to give someone a scholarship thinking that they're in a 4-year plan, that player will be a contributable player in year 2 or 3, but in his mind he wants to play now, that kid's out, and that's a whole waste of time of training them and preparing them and educating them in the whole 9 yards. That goes for both sports, basketball or football.
Or any of the college sports.
Yeah, any college sports right now. So that adds a whole layer of
complexity.
I mean, if you don't play, if turns out that you're the stud recruit, but some guy from wherever is a 2-star recruit, but what was very underrated, and he's better than you. I mean, I don't know. It's just a lot of chaos.
And it will be, right? First of all, I don't think we should give up, we as a sports community should give up on this concept until it's been in play for 5 years. Right?
No, I'm not saying I'm against. I just
no, you're not. I'm saying this out loud just for the audience at home. Yeah, no, you sound like you're still kind of exploring it, and that's the thing to do right now.
Especially if you're a quarterback, right? Because who's the first player you see transferring most of the time up until now? It was usually a quarterback or somebody who is not getting their recognition they think to get to the next level, or I don't want to pigeonhole a quarterback or someone of that level who's kind of like dipping and whether it be injury or academics or whatever, that's the first person you see or you worry about after the season's over. Oh, they're going to transfer now because they didn't get playing time.
No, you're absolutely right. I all that is accurate, but there's a few nuances I think that are getting left out. For one, let's do some math real quick. You mentioned the number of players in the college basketball transfer portal, right? Let's use the round number of there being 300 Division I basketball programs, men's alone, right? 5 players on a starting roster, and you're usually guaranteed to have 1, maybe 2 stars that will not leave or would not transfer out, right? Now, keep in mind, college basketball being one and done and all that just increases the complexity, okay? But excuse me. If there's 300 teams out there, right? And on average, well, I should say on average, typically speaking, a roster is 12 men long, right? Okay. That puts it at 10 times 300. That's 3,000 spots that exist.
30.
So 300 times 10, not 100.
Yeah, my numbers are
only adding 1 0.
Zeros are wrong, yeah.
Leave it to the data guy, brother. I got you. So, no, but
I was missing a 0 there.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned that there's 1,400 people in the portal. I say to you, there's only this many spots. There isn't that much movement. But let me add this point, right? Sometimes colleges see a recruit and fall in love. And they bring him in. He gets his spot. All that happens. Regardless of the sport. I'm going to speak of it in terms of the football because that's where I live. Please see the Aaron Evans original painting of me. Okay? That's my bias. All right? But please think of this in the context of for a single player in any sport, right? And you don't even have to be a quarterback per se. You could be a damn fullback, okay? You could be, we'll do something that doesn't, you could be a defensive tackle. That's where I'll go. Be a defensive tackle, right? They don't get a lot of love, but they're incredibly important in their own way. If you get a scholarship as a defensive tackle, they fall in love with you, and then it doesn't go as well. You end up not starting. You end up not getting your recognition out there. You have the option to transfer and start somewhere else. This is good for two reasons. A, that frees up a scholarship for somebody else that can play in that level. And B, it gives you an opportunity to go and get a scholarship somewhere else, be a big fish in a smaller pond, and lift a program that's out there that's struggling. You're going to be part, you, sir, who transfers and lifts up a bigger school to be competitive in a way they wouldn't have been before, a la basically the entirety of the Coastal Carolina defensive line. No, I'm not saying they're all transfers. I'm just saying they're guys that are working to currently uplift the bejesus out of a smaller program. You know, that is a scenario that is positive. And really, if the best answer you have is, oh, there's going to be a lot of people transferring, of course, that's going to be what's happening at first, right? Excuse me. I feel like it's a situation where the guys that will be utilizing the transfer portal most are the ones that have already become stuck and may have been stuck already for more than one season, potentially, right? Once that gets out of the way, I really kind of think the numbers equalize, because while it does increase the opportunity for mobility for college players, be it to get a better opportunity to play for the get out to the pros, be it for them to transfer to a school where they can and they care more about branding, you know, and be like a I forget the young man's name, but the former UCF kicker that was a national damn headline this time, 3 or 4 years ago, because he talked about being a UCF football player on YouTube. And then the NCAA got all up in arms about it, right? Now that's not a thing. If you're somebody who wants to do that, that's something that's on the table for you. Mm-hmm. There's so many other considerations that I think open things up. I believe it's actually a net positive. However, I do believe there's some nefariousness that could, that we don't have eyes on as members of the public, that could become problematic. Coaches, like the Bill Belichick's and all that, the Bill Belichick's, the Nick Sabans, what have you, are meant to work systems and find those cracks to work them to advantage to keep their prominence. And it's literally what they're paid millions of dollars to do. The biggest problem with this portal, in my opinion, is something we don't see yet. If your real answer is, well, the portal will become diluted, with what exactly? You know, another man's garbage has the other opportunity to be another man's gold for smaller programs. I don't see that being problematic.
You know what? Here's billion-dollar idea number 2.
Bobby's on fire tonight. Man, you better have a damn form for a patent application behind you here before you talk all this smack on the show.
Now, I don't know if you noticed, there's all right. The NBA this year had the G Team Elite, a team full of players from high school who didn't go to college and got paid this year.
Right.
$100,000, $150,000, something like that. There's at least one other league in the works, maybe two, because I read something. I got a headline about another one this week, who are trying to do the same thing with high school kids or who don't want to go to college. Or one of them is going to this league. We're going to pay you to play, and in your off time when you're not practicing, we're going to educate you as well, but not in a college type curriculum where it's strict and all those guidelines.
Right.
How long is it going to take, do you think, and you're a football guy, for something like that to happen in football? Where now, mind you, there's no spring league again. You know, maybe COVID destroyed the XFL's chances of making it after it was doing pretty good, this time last year or before COVID. I read somewhere where the XFL and the CFL might be merging. That could be something. Well, how long would it be, in your opinion, for that situation occurs in football, where if you're a real good stud high school football prospect, that there'll be a league for you to go into to get paid now and still prepare you to play in the NFL in a year or two?
All the guys that are good enough to have the notoriety to have the NFL on their radar are going to be drafted by the NFL, and they're actually going to play in a college setting first. Because, to be honest, the money in the college football system is too much to go away. Now, I get what you're getting at is they could be like, let's give you guys. I can go over and, sign up as an 18-year-old or whatever. I don't know that the average GM, even for a new league, is in a place to where they would be excited about doing that. Now, what would make this happen, Bobby Blackjack, is the ownership. No, is these prospects that are really good but on the edge. Let's say, as an example, a guy who I've been propping up, if you've been following my Twitter feed at all, at the SOTG, just like you see in the bottom left corner there, UCF corner Tay Gowan is absolutely amazing. He's on par with like Mike Hughes, who's currently an NFL corner. He started out strong. He dealt with injury issues, played for the Vikings. He's not that good, but he's going to be drafted. He shouldn't be drafted on the third day. I'll put it that way. On the third day, he'll be resting because he will be drafted on day 2. Kind of like Richie Grant as well, the safety. Go with either of those guys. If they were wanting to be paid, let's put it this way. We're also assuming that these other leagues are fiscally solvent. Bobby, that's a big ask right now. Okay. That's the thing that truly kills this plan outright, is the league that actually has the dollars to make this palpable. excuse me, a la the USFL or something like that at one point could pay their players on par with the NFL. Does not exist. It's an impossible ask at this point. But let's just say they did. The key to that would be how much juice do they bring to the local area? It would be kind of like a Florida lawyer here, John Morgan, actually campaigned on social media back in the day to get Tim Tebow to come to Jacksonville, where instead, obviously, he ended up with the New York Jets. But that's the only way I would really see that working out. That's kind of the situation that would have to happen for that to occur. But again, the leagues themselves have to be okay with it first. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I've been saying all these people, all these players in these portals, that you have to figure at what point is it just, especially in football, at what point is it not worth a 5-star high school prospect, running back, for example, who has all the makings of an NFL star? At what point is it not worth it for him to even go to college to blow his knee out, and having an option, and at least having an option to prep and prepare to play in the big leagues, the NFL, and still having a little bit of, if not long-term, immediate financial
benefit,
or what's the word I'm looking for? Ease.
Comfort, sure.
Comfort, yeah.
Which, again, a league solvent enough to provide that is what you're going to need to require for that scenario. Also, I would add this too, the transfer portal being as mobile as it is, to where eventually players can go to get the best bang for their buck and their talent. In other words, they can go to a school where they can market themselves the best while also give themselves the best opportunity on the field. Is something that mobility, I think, will take all the pay the players to play, at least, stuff off the table in my mind. But with that being said, Bobby Blackjack, we are nearing that hour mark, and we had a hell of a show tonight. I had a lot of fun with it, man. A lot of intellectual stuff. Wasn't just, although we did miss Rodney trolling us, wasn't just deflecting a lot of Rodney's trolls and Danny Thompson's just unquestionably ridiculously biased about the Mets and stuff. But
you mean Ronnie, my new LinkedIn partner, I guess? What do you call that when you're on LinkedIn?
They're still friends.
When you connect with, friends, right? I don't
Connections. That's it. Connections. Anyway. So, anyways, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. Find me on Twitter at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as a student of the game, and of course with Beyond the Buzzer and Hilarity by Default on YouTube, hilaritybydefault.com as well. And of course, my man Bobby Blackjack doing a thing for I-95 Sports, Blackjack TV, and you got something else going on Zingo too, don't you?
Well, Blackjack TV is on Zingo. I-95 Sports Network is now merged with Blackjack TV on Zingo. $199, and just recently launched our Twitch channel as well.
So anyways, this is Kyle Nash, student of the game, Bobby Blackjack, producer extraordinaire for Danny Thompson, who will be back next week as we get into the details of the draft. Next time, you all, looking forward to it. In the words of Danny Thompson, peace. Ba-thump, ba-thump. What? No.